So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about damaged books. So I'm Sean Kleckner, I'm the president of Right Stuf. I know that we have customers that are buying lots of books today, and certainly we want to give you the best quality books that we can. Some of the things that we see, however, with as many books as are being printed right now, is there's damages that are significant and things that we would definitely reject either at the door when the product comes in from the manufacturer, or if we see it on the shelf, we try to reject it. And if it gets out to you, then I'm surprised. Usually we are pretty good about getting things before they get out the door. But let me give you just a few examples of things that are really bad. So obviously this book, if it showed up in your box, you'd be pretty upset. And I'd understand that. I suppose, yeah, it's bad. You wouldn't do this. This book is also bad. It's all tore up. We wouldn't send this to you as a customer, or something where the piece is all broke up. That's a bad deal. Or this one's a hardcover book. You can see it's been smashed pretty bad. I will say, looking through some of these books, somebody brought these over to me, and this is probably one of the most unique ones I've seen in a while. This is a book that's not even bound. So it's like, I suppose they want you to put it in like a 3-ring binder or something so that maybe you can read it later. I don't know, but I guess I've never seen this one before, so that's how that even got into a box and got to us. I honestly couldn't tell you. This particular book is mistrimmed, so you'll notice that the top part of this, it's a square book, but they've trimmed it on the trimmer sideways, and so you'll see a strip at the top where the book is actually mistrimmed. The pages are off because it's tilted. But there are certain books that the damage might not be as visible. We try to make sure we look through everything we can. This book has a cut down the spine. The book itself is fine, it looks fine, but it's got a trim cut where generally this is done where somebody's slicing a box open or something, or something's happened and this book just gets cut with a box cutter or something like that. An example of a glue error is something like this. What happens, and I try to put this in the blog post that I put together. So let me kind of step back a second and talk a little bit about how bookbinding works, okay? So when a company is looking to make a book, these are all done on a very high-speed machine. And so the product goes through and they collect, usually it's either 16 or 32 pages at a time. They're printed all on one big piece of paper that's then folded all the way down to what they call a signature. The signatures are put in these machines as feeders, okay? So as the machine goes, it's going to take 1 signature, 2 signatures, 3 signatures, 4 signatures, all the way through all the signatures of the book. It's going to clamp those together, and then it's going to take it down a line. And then it's going to cut the edge of that off. It's called a trim, okay? And that's to make it rough so they can put the glue on. The glue is then put on that back piece, so you've got all your signatures, which are the different things here. You'll often be able to see them if you look here down the edge of the book. You'll be able to kind of see what the signatures are because there's little lumps. They'll trim the book on this side, they'll apply the glue. The machine comes down this direction, then this cover is another piece that comes on. The cover glue is applied to the bottom of the book, then the cover is then wrapped around the book, squished together, and then it goes down a little bit further, and then another machine will trim it. And this is where a lot of the problems that people seem to be getting today are coming from, is from the trim process. So this glue's on the edge, it's on the bottom, it comes through here, it flips the book, it trims it on 3 sides, generally at the same time. So you get knives coming this way and a knife coming this way. There's no knife obviously on the spine. When that knife comes down, it's trimming all the way across there. When you've got this glue that's on the edge, sometimes the glue might not be completely dry, and so it could be possible, especially if that knife isn't quite as sharp as it wants, that you'd like it to be, it can grab a little bit of that as it comes up. And when that happens, you get these little tears, essentially on the edges at the bottom and the top. And those tears are essentially because that knife is just not sharp enough. It's going to be on your corners, okay? And the reason for that is, again, these knives come down and they go all the way through and then they come back up, right? And so they're gonna, if there's anything that's holding it there, it's gonna grab. Picture it yourself where you got something that's there and you grab it, it's gonna tear. And those little tears are not considered a defect by the manufacturer. So although I know that people want to have their books to be absolutely perfect, those tears, we can't send those back to the publisher. The publisher feels those are part of the bookbinding process. The biggest problem right now is people are running books 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on these presses. Normally they would shut down periodically and they would sharpen all those knives. Now they're sharpening them less because they're trying to run books faster. I mean, from the conversations I've had with a lot of the book publishers, they're running the press 30 to 40% faster than they normally do, and they're not doing the trim knife sharpening, but maybe half of the normal time that they normally would. So we are seeing a lot more books that are coming through that have these little nicks and tears. Now, we're happy to take care of anything that gets out there like this with a knife cut. And you know, if it's got a glue error, which is this one, essentially there was too much glue on the edge, and when the book was folded over, that glue kind of wrinkled, and then you've got a wrinkle in the bottom. I mean, there are certain things that we can take care of, all right? But if we were to reject this entire pile that's all just nicks and tears on the little corners, we'd have no books to sell. And you know, obviously that's kind of a problem because we want to make sure that we get the books to you guys. We can't send them back. The vendor feels that this is normal book binding, so this is what we're going to have to send. I mean, I would love them all to be perfect, and for the most part, frankly, there's plenty of the books that don't have any of those nicks, but there's a lot that do. So I want to make sure that people understand this is where this comes from. It's not considered a defect, and we're not going to offer replacements for these books if they have the little nicks on the corners. However, if you, for some reason, manage to get this book that doesn't even have a bind to it and it shows up at your house, we will replace this. We will replace anything that's a significant damage to the book, but we can't replace the little nicks and tears. So on that, I've got a blog post that I've put up that kind of goes through the entire process of how a book is bound, but wanted to kind of just give some feedback as to why we're seeing more of this in the recent months. And frankly, a lot of it is mostly just because they're running these machines so much faster and they're not taking the time to maintain that equipment at the level they have been in the past. I hope this helps you to understand some of these things, and if there's comments that you want to post at the bottom, please feel free.